Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us begin with the first session of the forum, that is a high-level roundtable moderated by Ms. Anita Mendirata. Ms. Mendirata is the founder and president of Cachet Consulting and lead consultant of CNN International's Tourism Advertising Solutions and Knowledge Group. She is also a trusted and respected global strategic advisor and five-time author in tourism and development. Ms. Anita Mendirata, please join us on stage. And of course, joining Ms. Mendirata on stage, may I invite also Mr. Chattan Kunchon Na Ayutthaya, Ms. Maria Elena de Sena Fernandez, Honorary, Mr. Edmund Bartlett, Mr. Shogo Arai, Mr. Dennis Ichaso, Dr. Mario Hardy, and Ms. Vita Datao. And now may I pass the microphone to Ms. Anita Mendirata.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Zurab Pololikashvili, our Secretary General of the UNWTO, Your Excellency, and our dear, dear friend, Mr. Wiratsak Karusat, the Minister of Tourism of Sport and Thailand. Sir, you are an incredible ambassador for global tourism, and we thank you for hosting us. The Honorable Jose Marie Arcega, the Director of the Basque Culinary Center. Sir, Mr. Su Jing, our dear brother of the UNWTO for the Asia-Pacific region, Dr. Mario Hardy, CEO of PATA, honorable ministers, vice ministers, secretaries of tourism, distinguished officials, speakers and guests of the 4th edition of the World Forum of Gastronomy Tourism, my colleagues from the UNWTO and CNN, all dignitaries present today, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, Sawadee Ka. It is my great honor to invite you to join us for the high-level roundtable discussion in gastronomy tourism. And what better place in the world to do this than in amazing Thailand? Kingdom of Thailand is a place that brings together the spirit of hospitality to life and to lives. It does so in a way that is truly unique. And I must say, Honorable Minister, your comment on the fact that rice is not just a part of your culture, it defines your culture, was absolutely beautiful in bringing it very much to home. With leading gastronomy experts from across the world and ministers of tourism, we're going to have a conversation today about the power of gastronomy in truly, as was said, democratizes tourism and brings us all to one global community home. As we all know, and as was expressed by the UNWTO, as global tourism is on the rise and competition between destinations increases, unique local and regional intangible cultural heritage has increasingly become the discerning factor for the attraction and amusement of tourists. Gastronomy tourism has emerged as particularly important in our world. And importantly, it is one of the only niches in tourism that brings to life the supply chain, not just the tourism experience itself. We need to make sure, however, that this is done in an ethical way, in a responsible way, in a creative way, and in a truly inclusive way for the long term. Ladies and gentlemen, for all of us in the global tourism sector, our appreciation goes beyond gastronomy tourism as a fast-growth tourism niche. At the heart of tourism is the ability of people from different places, from different ways of thinking, and different ways of life to discover more about one another. Gastronomy offers the opportunity to not only open windows to cultures, but it opens doors, it opens home, and it opens hearts. Breaking bread has always been a critical part of people coming together. In today's world, and the more we can nourish our lives from genuine engagements, the healthier we will all be as a global community. When I introduce you to our panelists, as we have on our stage, you will see that we have ahead of us a feast of a discussion, because we have the perfect ingredients for the next 60 minutes to have a conversation about how gastronomy tourism can really work in a sustainable way, economically, socially, culturally, and environmentally, to truly strengthen the bonds of the global community. So, to spice things up as well, I have asked that we not do any formal presentations. I'm now going to start walking and talking. These lovely people have all agreed that they're not going to do any formal presentations. Instead, we're going to have a conversation, because we want to get the best out of what they are as people and personalities, not just the best out of their PowerPoints. So they have very kindly agreed that we're going to have a nice chat. Now, I'm very blessed in that I know many of them personally, so they know I'm going to push them a little bit, and we're going to get into a conversation that really is going to add value. Because as we've seen and as has been discussed, gastronomy tourism has the opportunity to truly shift the needle on sustainable tourism. But we can't do it unless that needle pokes a little bit. So I'm going to start the poking now, and I thank all of our great speakers for their participation. From the ASEAN region, from beyond, from around the world, please, ladies and gentlemen, another round warm of applause for our speakers. So, to begin the conversation itself, we'd like to discuss how destinations are currently leveraging gastronomy tourism to strengthen the competitive offerings that each of you have in your home countries and as the basis of sustainable tourism development. Because at the end of the day, whether we use gastronomy, whether we use technology, whatever we use, we need to make sure that we are driving the SDGs. So my question goes to you all. How are destinations currently leveraging gastronomy tourism to strengthen competitive offerings from your perspective? And I would like to start with my dear friend Helena from Macau. Please.
Well, I guess we have been using tourism as a way to promote Macau for quite a long time. Obviously, most of you in the room would know Macau not for gastronomy, I believe, but we have a very, very strong. Obviously, now we give it a very nice word, integrated resorts. We used to call them casinos, But of course, you want very nice words for, which stand for something. But we have been, using gastronomy to promote tourism in Macau for many, many years already. Why? Because we do feel that, in order to be sustainable, you also have to allow, people to realize their potential. And one of the potentials of Macau is, because we have this mixed culture of Portugal and China. And of course, all the African and Indian spices all along, the routes when the Portuguese came to Macau. We believe that this is also very, very much part of our culture, and we want this part of our culture to be preserved, to be understood, and also for people to be able to come and savor what Macau really stands for. Not only the more glamorous part of Macau. So all along, why recently we also, last year we applied to UNESCO to make Macau, one of the cities of gastronomy. Phuket is also a city of gastronomy as well. Why? Because we feel that, in this way we have the recognition, if we have the recognition by UNESCO, then we make our case a much more stronger case. And also we're able to, let not only other people outside of the outside world know a different face of Macau, but we also, give the opportunity for the local youngsters, for the local peoples, to be able to, to also take part in the making of Macau as a more wholesome destination. So I guess, that is why we feel that, going forwards, gastronomy will still continue to be part of the product offering of Macau, and also part of the ways that our young peoples would be able to, come and realize their potentials.
It's lovely. And one of the fascinating things I find about Macau is that you've used gastronomy, and UNESCO has acknowledged it, as a way of defining the Macau experience, rather than specific experiences within Macau defining Macau.
Right.
So it's a lovely way of doing it. I'd like to now please move to Mr. Shogo Arai-san. Arai-san, from the point of view of Japan, while you are not in ASEAN, you very much believe in the ASEAN principle of working together. Japan has always been one of the great national expressions of global food. Please, can you share how you now are looking forward to bringing that to life, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm from Nara Prefecture, Japan. I'm tackling to promote Nara tourism flow. Let me say it briefly. Our job in Nara Prefecture is the creation of job. Tourism can create a job, particularly young generation and elder generation. And you eat at home and eat in the long distance. What the difference? It's eat in the long distance create more pleasure. That's the essence of tourism, gastronomy. And Nara was the first capital of Japan. It was a very famous tourism destination, but now it's behind of competitiveness among cities. How come I'm looking for bettering our destination? The first that I challenge something for creation of good, better destination, and particularly our destination is many visitors, day visitors, less visitors stay longer at night. Overnight tourists are less. Then if you eat a dinner at the destination, that means that more tourists can stay longer at the destination. That means gastronomy creates a long stay tourist at the destination. Then gastronomy is important in our promotion. And another thing, it's gastronomy creates a good memory. Good memory, tourism, travel memory is just taste of gastronomy cannot be photos. You cannot take photos of taste. You can preserve only in the memory. The gastronomy is very closely connected with the taste, but taste itself is vague. Gastronomy taste should be mixed with a partner and circumstances and a good conversation. My job as a governor of the local authorities is create good environment for the gastronomy tourists. Then the gastronomy means certain technology, but I think the tourism itself is low-tech industry. Gastronomy is also low-tech industry. It needs, as essence, heart hospitality, entertain the people from the long distance as eating at home. Then we have many things to do for promotion, development of gastronomy. I believe the development of gastronomy movement can help a lot for tourism in the global scene. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sir, you mentioned a lovely point when you said about the fact that you can't taste a photograph of food, of gastronomy. But interestingly, you've indicated a very powerful way in which gastronomy is now acting as a way of enticing future travelers. Because how often do we see on social media photographs of food? It might not be a way of tasting food, but it's a way of creating food envy. So that's an interesting little play on the technology itself. I'd like to now go from Japan to Indonesia. Because if we look at it from the point of view of Ms. Vita Datua, yes, you've actually incorporated gastronomy into your tourism strategy. Please, can you share a little bit about that and why you've done that?
Actually, Indonesia is really aware that the gastronomy could be the significant pull factor to branding the destination, and also this awareness creating the very massive movement in my country in the industry, in the tourism industry. And luckily that we being supported by our President Joko Widodo, our president, which is he also declared tourism as a leading sector. So this year we have 3 leading sectors in the government, which is one is the gastronomy and agriculture and fishery. And that's all related to the local produce, you know. So I think this is the time that our country really committed to brand the destination, because like Thai as well, we have biodiversity in cultural, which is we have 1,340 tribes in our country, and we have more than 5,000 recipe, traditional recipe as well, that we can really explore to become the asset of the gastronomy tourism. That's why we plan to work together with the UNWTO to do some prototype destination in gastronomy. Then we choose Ubud as our destination. So Ubud, Bali. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'd like to now move from Indonesia to Jamaica, because I know Honorable Minister Bartlett has a very interesting point of view on this, especially, as was said by Araisan, about using gastronomy for job creation, which is one of the end goals of tourism development. How, sir, is Jamaica using gastronomy to compete, but doing it in a way that really does bring people to life? Minister Bartlett.
Yeah, competitiveness of gastronomy destination. It's a kind of important question. And, you know, it's, say, if you choose a destination for travel, gastronomy could be first, but the other factors are involved. Then we need a mixture of all essence of tourism attraction. I usually put the A capital. So appetite is most important. I should say appetite is the gastronomy. And you can be relaxed as you are at home. You need a good hotel. Accommodation is necessary for the choice of destination. And thirdly, amenity should be attached to any part of tourism. Accessibility, you have to go long distance very easily, and you want to go back at home quickly. And attraction, amusement, and finally, Asha is French, but the shopping is also needed for the destination choice. Then gastronomy is the most important factor of the choice of destination, but to create a good competitiveness as a destination, we need an all-round factor of destination.
Indeed. Arigato. Honorable Minister, your thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you. We begin on the basis, of course, that gastronomy tourism has emerged as the #1 source of tourism expenditure across the world today. That interestingly, nearly 40% of the tourism spend is on food. And if we look at the 1.3 trillion tourism expenditure globally, we would perhaps see that gastronomy tourism looks like 400 to 500 billion of that. The issue, therefore, is how do we leverage that huge spend to provide economic well-being for the people of the recipient countries? If we also accept that 80% of tourism is driven by the small and medium enterprises across the world, but only 20% of the returns from tourism go to that 80%, then we see that there is an asymmetry here and that there's need for some balancing. So we in Jamaica have looked at that. We've also looked at the extent to which there's retention of the tourism expenditure within the recipient countries. And we discovered that the average retention in recipient countries are somewhere about 20%. That is, for every dollar that the tourists spend, 20 cents remain in the country, the recipient countries. So there's a problem here too, because a number of us are highly tourism dependent, particularly countries in the Caribbean, and we have GDP dependence of up to 41%. And in some countries, particularly those in the Asian areas, particularly those in Philippines and some in the Indian Ocean, like the Maldives, they have as high as 79% dependence on tourism. So, if that is so, how do we use the various elements of tourism to enrich the local population? And since gastronomy is the largest component of that expenditure, let us find a way to do it. So Jamaica has established gastronomy tourism as our #1 driver for visitor arrivals in our country. And in doing so, we've sought to look at how do we, first of all, identify the source. The source is from the hinterlands, the small providers of street foods and the small farmers in the hills who provide the vegetables and the salads and the meats and whatever the ingredients are that indeed end up making the cuisine that we have. So if we have these small farmers, how do we use technology to connect the small farmers, the small providers of the gastronomy experience with the buyers? And this is where we've used technology to create connectivity and access. So we've established apps, and we have an app called Alex, which connects the little supplier in the deep rural with the buyers. Then we use the website, create platforms to build content and to connect this content with the buyer and the market, so that the visitor can in fact make contact with the buyers long before they arrive in Jamaica. But to enable this, we have to do three things. We have to train. So we train our small farmers. We build gastronomy arrangements. We establish what we call innovation centers to train chefs, to look at various types of food preparation and how do we create the most exotic combination to satisfy the palates of everyone who comes to Jamaica. Then after we've trained, we provide funding for access, because ideas need to be converted. And so the means by which we convert is to provide affordable capital. And we put in $1 billion Jamaican dollars. It's not an awful lot of US, but it's $1 billion Jamaican dollars in the Exim Bank to be on lent to small entrepreneurs at a rate of 5%, which is a very substantially low rate in Jamaica, over a 5-year period, and an amount of $5 to $25 million. This gives a small operator an opportunity to do the conversion. And then third, and finally, we provide a market. The market is in terms of building out artisan villages that offer opportunities for food shops and for the display of the culinary creative expressions of our people. And we have established in the city our most important heritage center, Devon House, and we've called that the Gastronomy Center of Jamaica. So we bring visitors in, we create kitchens that are properly appointed, and we establish around it farmers' markets so as to allow for the access to the food and the ingredients that are required. This combination enables us to have a stronger retention. Today, we started at 20 cents to the dollar, and we are now at 30 cents to the dollar. That's how we've used gastronomy to increase not only income, but also accessibility to the destination.
Lovely. Thank you very much, sir. And one thing I found very interesting about what the Honourable Minister Bartlett's just shared, he never mentioned the word tourist in his entire speech, which was interesting how leveraging gastronomy tourism from a competitive point of view is actually about treating it as a business, connecting people to supply chains, markets, funding, as well as travelers, which is really quite nice. I'd like to now come back home to Mr. Chasankunjara Nayudya, our Deputy Governor, because interestingly, Thailand took a very personal approach to tourism development in your strategy in communicating Thai-ness through gastronomy and other elements. Can you share a little bit about that and marrying it to what Honourable Minister Bartlett said as well?
Absolutely, Anita. We do a tourist survey every year, and for a few years now, we found that the number 1 reason why visitors come to Thailand is for the food. And it's like number 1 far above and beyond number 2. Number 2 is like shopping, and 3 is like beaches. So people come here to eat. So, once we find that out, then we integrate food into our marketing strategies. We're wanting to tell people that, come here, have good food, and in between meals you can do some sightseeing, instead of the other way around. For a lot of years, food used to be a byproduct when you come to Thailand. Not anymore. We're just saying that, food is part of life here. So if you want to enjoy Thailand, You come here, and you not only eat in the restaurants, which is, by itself a fantastic experience, but go further. You have to visit the countryside where food is produced, where the farmers are, where fresh fish, seafood is caught in the Gulf of Thailand and in the Andaman Sea, And beyond that, it's a way of life, It's a total experience, So that's how we think food is helping to sustain communities and sustain the way of life, because we want to get people to travel to those areas. Every dish in front of you has a story. There's the pad thai story, there's the tom yum goong story, there's a som tam story, so each has its own very unique backgrounds, and you can't get the full story by just ordering a menu of dishes in a restaurant. You have to travel. And when people travel to those areas, Anita, they, of course they create income, they create revenue for the locals. But what they also do is they give inspiration for those locals to continue their traditions. And so it's what we're after is giving the visitors a total visitor experience and a total dining experience.
Stunning. Thank you very much. And I must say, one thing I love about these conversations is that the ideas that bubble out are brilliant. And I'm going to steal your every dish in front of you as a story, because you, sir, as the Honourable Minister, need to use that. But equally, I think Thailand is one of the only countries in the world that will very happily have at immigration a way in and a way out. And when you're standing and getting your photograph taken, there's a scale. So if anyone leaves the country having lost weight, you haven't had a good Thai experience. Thank you for that. I'm now going to jump down to technically your neighbor, because he's here from Thailand. And as much as Mario is 2 days after his birthday, I'm going to say it again, this gentleman, despite the beautiful early graying that we see on him, is the epitome of what I call a millennial redefined. As we often talk about millennials as a certain age, which I think is rather unfair, and it can be often offensive to those who have, like Mario, a millennial mindset. Because if there is anyone that is more technologically connected to anything in lifestyle through digital, I'd be challenging on that. Mario, when we talk about your understanding of, particularly in this very competitive region, how technology can be used to strengthen competitiveness and opportunity. I would love to know, sir, from your very unique point of view of both PATA and being our millennial in the room, what your thoughts are.
Thank you, Anita. First, I think I'd like to, food is a way to connect people. And as a gentleman from Japan mentioned before, it actually creates memories. I spent my teenage years in the Basque country. And so when we've met this morning with Jose, memories of some of the Basque food came back to mind, and now I really feel really hungry for it. But also, technology is just a means to actually connect people. Food is very tactile. You've got to smell it, you've got to taste it. And I'd like to share an experience I had when I first moved to Thailand. My wife and I wanted to actually enjoy real Thai food with a Thai family, but we didn't know anyone. So we went online and found a couple websites. One is called Plate Culture or Eat With, and there's many others, where you can actually go and enjoy a meal with a local family. A way to enjoy real local foods and meet local people, interact with them, get embedded into the culture. And to me, that technology part is just a simple way. It's just a website that connects local people with tourists or people who just want to enjoy a local meal. The technology part is just a way, a means to get to the end of it, to really enjoy that local meal. But that experience actually stays in our memory. I probably had one of the best pad thai I ever had in my life with this family, but also at the same time, we got to know the local cultures and how people make this meal together. They showed us the ingredients, and they offered to help them cook it together. And to me, that this is an unbelievable experience, a very memorable one, that actually will stay with us for the rest of our life. And then you can travel to another country and try the same thing. These platforms offer you this ability to connect with people. And I think we should always remember that we're in the tourism industry, and culture is part of it, heritage is part of it. Food is integrate part of that too. I've been spending over 15 years now living in Asia, and very quickly realized that food is as the center of everything here. Not only in Thailand, but other countries I lived in Asia, the same thing. People travel for food. They come to Thailand to taste real local food. Not only to see the beaches and spend time with visiting temples and etc., but also to enjoy the local aspect of it.
It's beautifully said. Thank you. And I love the fact that you've emphasized, especially you with all of your tech background, that technology is actually a tool to access touch. It's never to replace the touch itself. I'd like to now go to the Basque region, because if we look at it, and Dennis, I'd like to ask from your perspective, one thing I find fascinating about the Basque Culinary Center is how early it married technology and gastronomy. What learnings can you share in terms of keeping that balance between technology and touch when it comes to gastronomy? Please.
Thank you, Anita. First of all, I would like to apologize for not speaking in English. I will continue in Spanish. Como ha dicho nuestro secretario general de la Organización Mundial de Turismo, la semana pasada tuvo lugar en San Sebastián el Consejo Ejecutivo de la Organización Mundial de Turismo. Y el presidente situó como uno de los grandes desafíos la sostenibilidad. Nosotros pensamos que el turismo gastronómico también puede contribuir a la sostenibilidad y al equilibrio de los flujos turísticos. Desde hace algún tiempo, en la región de San Sebastián, venimos desarrollando una estrategia turística de promoción, tratando de hacer ver algo que comentaba también el representante del gobierno de Tailandia, y es que la gastronomía no empieza y no se acaba en un tour de pinchos por la parte vieja de San Sebastián, ni siquiera empieza y se acaba en un plato de un restaurante de 1, 2 o 3 estrellas Michelin. La gastronomía, como ha dicho en la presentación también José María Icega, el director del Basque Culinary Center, es toda una cadena de valor que puede presentarse como producto turístico y, por tanto, que puede ser visitable por parte de los turistas, que pueden conocer a los productores, que pueden conocer los mercados rurales, que pueden conocer a los pescadores, que pueden conocer, digamos, a los distribuidores y todo aquello que tiene que ver con la gastronomía, de tal manera que además de las papilas gustativas y, por tanto, de entrar a través del sentido del gusto, podamos entrar a través de la cultura, de las raíces y de todo aquello que explica nuestra identidad cultural y gastronómica. A mí, Anita, si me permites, me gustaría pedirle a la organización que pusiera un vídeo de 2 minutos que he dejado preparado, porque toda esta estrategia se explica muchísimo mejor en términos de promoción turística si somos capaces de ver este vídeo, a través del cual podemos ver la experiencia de 2 turistas que vienen atraídos por la marca de San Sebastián, que está, digamos, tiene mucha notoriedad, pero que consiguen conocer el conjunto del territorio.
サンセバスティアンは日本でもよく知られている。文化、風景、何よりも食で知られている。よって我々にとって夢見ていた目的地であった。それぞれの場面、味、料理など本当に楽しんだ。次から次へと驚きばかり。またピンチョスも知った。洗練された料理のミニチュアがいっぱい並んでいるバルのカウンター。食の旅は喜び。ある午後、今の季節はシードルレストランの季節とホテルのスタッフが説明してくれた。そしてサンセバスティアンから10分のアスティガラガにあるシードルレストランに行った。大樽から直接注ぎリンゴシードルを飲み、食べ、笑い、そして多くの友達を作った。その時、大 オルディシアで開かれる市場のことを話してくれた。翌日起床してからオルディシアへの行き方を調べ電車に乗った。アジアの通りには多くの市場があるが、オルディシアのような市場はない。生産者たちの手作りによる何十種類もの食材がある。オルディシアでこの辺りの食を巡っている北海道出身の日本人たちに出会う。私たちは前衛料理を試しに来たが、調理そして食を愛するこの唯一の食文化の氷山の一角だけを知った。
Hay un riesgo de concentración de turistas que yo creo que afecta a todo el mundo y todos estamos pensando en estrategias de cómo distribuir esos turistas para que no se masifiquen, no se concentren en determinados espacios. El poder explicar al turista que hay toda una región donde puede conocer la historia, la trayectoria de esos alimentos con los que luego va a probar deliciosos platos, es una forma también de contribuir a ese reparto más equilibrado y más sostenible de los flujos turísticos. Lamento que no se haya podido ver los subtítulos en inglés, pero básicamente es la historia de una pareja que viene atraída por la gastronomía de alto nivel, pero descubre una gastronomía popular en el conjunto del territorio.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And I must say, what was lovely about that video is you actually combined 3 different cultures in one, because you were in San Sebastian with someone from Japan, with the English subtitles. But sir, I'm going to lovingly and respectfully disagree with you on one thing. You said at the beginning you were going to apologize for speaking in Spanish. Ladies and gentlemen, never, 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 ever apologize, because one of the greatest cultural expressions we have is language, and we must celebrate that as much as we celebrate food. So thank you for bringing that extra dimension into it. I'd like to now shift this conversation a little bit from the point, and I thank you for the commercial break as well, that was brilliantly timed, and ask you to now shift from, if we know what this incredible opportunity is with gastronomy tourism, both for the travelers, but also the people of the destination, how do we marry this to what we know are collective goals that we all have, which is the Sustainable Development Goals? And what role can tourism, can technology play as a tool for bringing that to life? I'd like to please pass it to Indonesia. Madam, from your perspective, because you've literally documented this as part of your national strategy, please.
Okay. First, I think when we build the gastronomy tourism in our in the country, I think we should set up the framework, which is Indonesia having the very strong framework right now, which is we connect definitely the culture, and we also have the very strong story as a part of the storytelling. Then how the ritual and ceremony we can combine with the local produce, which is spice. In Indonesia, we are very big on spice. And we also have the history about the spice trade back to the 18th centuries. So that's all become the main framework, which is creating the experience and also the storytelling on the gastronomy tourism. So, but definitely we have to respect on the sustainable tourism, which is protect the environment and everything. Then how we also respect the joint declaration, because Indonesia is an Asian, so ASEAN having the joint declaration on gastronomy tourism by Asian Minister Tourism last January. So I think that's the factor. So the challenge itself, you know, in the millennials, how we deals with the preservation. So definitely the technology has become one of the media to connect, to communicate using the language of the millennials. And our government actually also creating, we call it as a digital destination, but actually this is a pop-up traditional market. But when we create the environment, using the, the millennials environment. So a lot of young people coming to that destination. And what happened? So by maybe we count only a minute, they already put everything which is local content in the market, the traditional food and everything on the social media. So that's why the challenge is how to deal with the millennials to preserve, to conserve the culture, the tradition. But using the very tricky strategy, attracting the young people and then ask them to participate on conserve, but without we have to push, we have to, what do you call it, we just let it flow, then the young generation will really think that, oh, culture is really cool and we have to preserve it. Then they also know when the tourism growth means that we also can give a lot of benefit to the local community, and that's also very important. So I think the three strategy that we're doing is a branding, boosting and building. Building because we have to build the gastronomy destination that actually potential but not ready in terms of the accessibility, amenities, but the attraction is there. Then also we need the commitment of the CEO in each part of the region. As Indonesia having 34 provinces and more than 500 regions, so they are really unique, but how the government in the center connect them into the pentahelix. We call it as a pentahelix stakeholder platform, which is we include the academician, the business, which is industry, and community, government, and the media. Media also very important too. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. You brought in some really interesting elements. And I particularly loved your point that we need to make it part of the policy frameworks to boost and build. And if there's one part of the world that knows the power of boosting and building, it's Macau. And Madam, I'd like to know, Helena, from your point of view, how you have been able to inject all of these types of efforts to make sure that you are boosting and building Macau in a way that does link to sustainable development of Macau. Please.
Okay, in the, obviously in the positioning of Macau right now, not only we have thought about it, but also in terms of the entire Chinese central government, Macau is to build ourselves into a world center of tourism and leisure, meaning to say that we're using tourism to bring better lives for our own people and also to be able to make Macau a more sustainable place, to be. So, in one of our strategies, obviously, is, in terms of the whole tourism mix, gastronomy is a very important component of it. I've talked about that, in the beginning. So when we put forward ourselves, to apply to the UNESCO's Creative Cities Network in the area of gastronomy, we thought very hard as to, not only thinking about food and food as something good to eat. We also thought about the more, I would say, using gastronomy really, to help Macau, build ourselves more sustainably in the future. So a lot of the things that we have, put forward in terms of our application document to UNESCO is how to, well, one, of course, to be able to use Macau's strengths to meet the sustainable development goals of the UN, of course, for UNESCO. And for ourselves in particular, we want to make sure that, going forwards, we can leverage gastronomy as a creative element, so that people can, in the future, not only think about, what we can do in terms of, cooking good food, but also, make gastronomy be able to create jobs, different jobs, not that we have a problem in terms of unemployment, unemployment rate is now less than 2%, but the thing is, going forwards, what choices are you giving to your own peoples in terms of, how they can develop themselves in the future? So after we've got the UNESCO designation, of course, a lot of work now is being put into, one, making people aware that, being a city of gastronomy is not only about food, it's about our history, it's about our culture, it's also about going forwards how we want to develop the destination and make better lives for our own people. And secondly, you know, to be able to, you know, create the framework and also create the infrastructure for people to be able to develop themselves in the future. So now a lot of effort, a lot of I would say a lot of money is being plowed into creating culinary centers, I would say new projects in terms of, you know, international collaboration, and also how do we use gastronomy sustainably and creatively, you know, to develop together with other disciplines like design, like technology, like media arts and all that, you know. So I think that, you know, gastronomy right now for us, when we look at it, it's not only about the food, it's about, you know, the potential around, you know, using food as one part of our creativity going forwards. So I guess that, you know, just now we've learned from, you know, all different destinations how we want to, you know, make our cultures more, you know, I would say, make people understand more about our cultures through food, make people understand, you know, and go to different places and also help the different communities. I think it, you know, in different ways, you know, we're all coming towards realizing the same goals, you know. So I guess, you know, it's a good opportunity today, you know, to be able to learn, you know, from different, you know, peoples like Jamaica's talking about training. We're also doing training. So I guess, you know, we need to take a lead from, you know, from each and every one of us.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And there's so much that's interesting about what you were saying, but I'm going to link back to what our dear friend from right here at home said, that every dish in front of you has a story to tell. And to your point, food is indeed, it's an access point to history. It's even a simple thing like African chicken on a menu. Its history and what it says about Macau as a maritime center is quite remarkable. I'd like to now move to Honourable Minister Bartlett. From your point of view, because you've been pushing very hard that no matter what we say in terms of the marketing of gastronomy tourism, we need to make sure we're creating jobs. We need to make sure that we are lifting up the baseline for women, for youth, for everyone. How can we ensure that we are doing this, and how do we measure it as a country when it comes to gastronomy tourism? Is it possible?
Well, first of all, I think we recognize that gastronomy is like tourism, in that it's a series of multiple connecting parts that must all come together seamlessly to create an experience that can be purchased at a price. So when we look at gastronomy and how it is derived in the end, we see multiple connectivities. It's the farmer, and to him it's the manufacturer, it's the designers, it's the construction crew that are dealing with making all the various infrastructure that is required to deliver that gastronomic fare at the end of the day. And then, of course, in all of this, there are the creative minds, those who are looking at how do we make cuisines, how do we put together menus, how do we construct packaging, how do we deal with aroma and taste, to his point, how do you connect the brain and the tongue to create that particular delicate desire that is felt and that becomes what I call an important part of the lexicon of your people. How does it become opinionated so that when the visitor comes, he leaves with a conversation about that particular dish and what it does to them overall. So what we're seeing then is a whole confluence of economic and value chain coming together and creating, the good news is creating jobs at every point of contact. So that out of our gastronomy experience can come jobs for the ordinary Jamaicans, job for the technocrats, job for the technologists, job for the marketers, jobs for the distributors and the traders. And what that means is value added to the economy. Because when jobs are provided, income is generated. When income is generated, then revenue is derived. When revenue is derived, governments get a chance to plow back into the development of the country. So in building gastronomy, we're building the value chain to enable economic enrichment and development. And that is the most significant element of the SDGs as we know it.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well said. I'd like to come back home to our lovely Deputy Governor. And sir, from a policy and planning perspective, building on what Honourable Minister Bartlett said, we need to be able to make those connections of those interconnected points, especially when it comes to the value chain and the economic benefits. How are you able to do that here in Thailand, in a country that really gets it and works to get it done? Please.
Well, thank you. You know, we're the Tourism Promotion Office, right? But we can't succeed in anything we do without local support. So I refer to the points made in the SDGs. There are 3 points which I think jump out at me. That's share, foster, and empower. Okay? I'll go for foster first. Foster in the SDG means to foster connectivity. Okay, so you know, we're in the tourism industry. Tourism industry is the business of people meeting people. And in order to get people to connect with people more, of course, a lot of places, they have beautiful beaches and natural and historical attractions, but a lot of places don't, or they're still in development. But what those places lack in physical attractions, maybe they have in food. You know, you and I, we often travel to places just to eat good food, yeah? So we're using gastronomy tourism for Thailand to connect people, okay? So like I said before, rather than being just a byproduct of when you reach a destination, it can be the primary reason you travel to a place. Okay, that's foster. Sharing. Then now we come to technology. Technology, like you said, Anita, should never replace the actual experience of dining. Okay, but technology does have wonderful advantages, especially when you share what you see, what you eat, what you taste. You know, my Instagram account, there's nothing but food on there. There's no photos of my family, no selfies of myself at tourist places, just food, okay? And I passionately, and others do, we write about what we feel when we eat and how those dishes affect us as a person. So that's technology sharing. You know, it's in Thailand, it's quite developed. You know, you find posts and you know, social media and bloggers all the time talking and capturing images about food. And then we come to empower. You know, when we travel to a place, you know, it inspires the locals to continue what they're doing, you know. If you cook good food and you get no customers, then after a time you stop doing that, you know, you stop cooking. And traditions die out, you know. So we want to tell people, you know, especially our locals, that, you know, you do what you do. You know, it doesn't need to have much enhancement, really, in many cases. Just cook what you cook, and it's a part of life already. And, you know, if you keep doing that, we will help you. We will help the locals to get people to experience what you're doing.
That's a lovely, lovely point. And I must say, these sessions can be quite fun, and full credit to the UNWTO for pulling together such great speakers, because they're like soundbite candy. But I must admit that clearly your Instagram account is suffering from obesity. You are not, but clearly your Instagram account.
I'm nearly there, yeah, thank you.
But I love the fact that part of empowering is not just job creation, it's pride creation. And it's inspiring people to keep making the pad thai at the side of the street. You don't have to have a sexy restaurant with a beautiful menu, that it's that texture that brings it to life. I'd like to take that thought to Arai-san and take us back to Japan and look at how we can, because you spoke, sir, right up front about the importance of gastronomy tourism, making sure it's creating jobs. And Japan is a nation that takes enormous pride in what it shares through gastronomy. How are you finding that you are able to take those aspirations, those commitments, and now link them to the SDGs? Please.
our time and numbers of eating occasion is limited in our life, but our desire is larger. Okay, we can eat more delicious food with more delicious people in the delicious places. Then that creates opportunity to gastronomy tourism. Then what the choice factor of destination? Delicious food is one, but good circumstances is another. Then as a tourist industry, we have to create combination of good food, good atmosphere, and good nutrition, and then that good industries. Then we have a very strong desire to live longer in a good health. Of course, that desire is limited, but the food, good nutrition can help that desire completed. And then, as to our standpoint, so our kind of life stage is getting longer. That's because of good food, good nutrition, natural good food. And second is a good opportunity to talk to the different people. And good exercise. Tourism need a combination of good food, the good relaxation, good exercise, and the contact with other people. That creation revitalize the brain and the body. And nutrition is a very important point. But, people get elder. We don't need big gastronomic food as a volume. We need a small portion of delicious food with good circumstances. That's our new direction, I think.
Indeed. Thank you. Arigato. And I love the fact that the circumstance is as much as an ingredient of the food as the food itself, which is lovely. As we go into our last few minutes, I'm going to ask a question to our two, for lack of better words, gastro-techies on the panel. And one of them is smiling, so he already knows it's coming to him. I want to ask, is what's come out very clearly is the fact that technology is not a part of the SDG delivery. It's actually the DNA of SDG delivery itself. I would love to know, first Mario, and then from Dennis, yourself, I'm going to give you the last word, sir, in Spanish. What direction would you give leaders in gastrotourism when it comes to leveraging technology smartly to really deliver on the quantitative value of the SDGs? Please, Mario.
Sure. Let me first give me one positive and one negative. One positive is I just returned from China. I was in Xi'an just a few days ago. And walking around in the Muslim Quarter, one of the little streets, there were a lot of street vendors, people selling, making food, local breads, and etc. We all know that in Asia, some of the best food are actually in the street. But quite often, the challenge for visitors and also for locals, this is one of my issues, I don't carry cash on me very rarely, is actually payment. And something I've noticed in China, which was actually really interesting, is people use QR codes and WeChat or WePay to make payment. So money transferred automatically in real time. It's very quick, it's very efficient, and actually a very interesting way to use technology to help the local vendors with payment and collections of money, which I think is a really interesting way to develop tourism in the future and help the local communities and the vendors. There is one challenge that I see that we all need to get together and to move forward, and technology might be a solution for this. But I think first of all is education, is we need to reduce the amount of plastic consumption. If you go to the street sellers, not only here in Minister, but across the region, in other countries, Indonesia, Philippines, every country in the region here, the use of plastic in street sellers is enormous. Plastic straws, plastic bags, and everything else. There are alternatives. And we need to educate the local populations and the vendors on what are the alternatives and give them assistance so that we can actually help our planet moving forward. And this relates directly to SDGs and something we all need to take action moving forward.
Mario, thank you very much. And as we've had already one commercial break, I'm going to give you 60 seconds, please, for a commercial break as well. Because you as PATA have initiated a really powerful initiative around food wastage. Can you tell us briefly about that, please?
Yes, we started a few months ago. Actually, it all started in Macau when we hosted our PATA Traveler Mart last year. And one of our members raised a concern about the food waste. Extreme amount of food, very generous amount of food that was provided at the event. But we see this at every other event and every other restaurants and hotels quite often, is the excess amount of food actually being offered to us. And the food waste. And what do we do with it? So we decided to take action. We started a campaign earlier in the year, spending time with hotels here in Bangkok, but also inviting our student chapters around the world to join in and do something similar. So we created a set of tools. If you go to the pata.org website and go under sustainability, you'll find a dedicated page about a campaign called Buffet, which is actually building an understanding for food waste. And actually gives you a set of tools on how you can reduce food waste at events, at hotels, and restaurants, and other facilities, and help you to actually improve your ROI. If you produce less, just enough, you improve your return on investment. There is a commercial aspect of it, but most importantly, it's good for the environment, it's good for our planet. And there's a set of tools that are actually available. We're happy for all of you to join in. This is available to anyone. You can copy, replicate, use it, promote it, share it with anyone.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And great leadership on that. 60 seconds, sir, because we're wrapping up
on the
shortly.
question of the waste, there's also the technology that has now developed. There's a thing called Froozer, F-R-O-O-Z-E-R, which provides an opportunity for all waste food to be brought together, frozen, rearranged, repackaged, and reserved. It's part of the circular economy, where everything is valuable and nothing is to be wasted.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And before I do a little quick summary, Dennis, over to you, please, en español.
Sí, básicamente me gustaría poner sobre la mesa una experiencia que estamos desarrollando ahora mismo en Guipúzcoa, en la región de San Sebastián, en colaboración con el Basque Culinary Center, vinculada a lo que llamamos Gastronomía 4.0, y es el modo en el que la tecnología, a través de la investigación, nos puede ayudar a conocer cuál es la reacción del comensal, del consumidor. Por ejemplo, a desarrollar mecanismos por los cuales los electrodomésticos del futuro puedan detectar de forma inteligente la falta de algún ingrediente para los chefs, para los cocineros. Es decir, la tecnología todavía puede dar muchísimo de sí para facilitar lo que es la experiencia del consumidor, la experiencia del comensal, pero también al chef, al restaurante, a la empresa gastronómica, ¿no? Y hasta ahora hemos hablado de tecnología y hemos hablado de cultura y raíces, pero no me gustaría terminar sin poner de relieve que la gastronomía también es una poderosísima herramienta para el diálogo intercultural. En San Sebastián se celebra todos los años un festival internacional de cine. Hay una sección llamada Culinary Cinema en la que podemos ver todos los años los mejores documentales sobre las mejores experiencias a lo largo y ancho del mundo en materia gastronómica, las historias más exóticas, más atractivas, más distintas a las nuestras. Y también celebramos San Sebastián Gastronómica, que es una feria en la que nos abrimos al mundo. Nos preciamos los vascos de tener profundas raíces y una profunda identidad, y eso es algo que nos define, pero también somos un pueblo abierto, somos un pueblo, de alguna manera, con los brazos abiertos a otras culturas, porque, como decía antes, la gastronomía también es diálogo, es multiculturalismo y es conocimiento de la realidad de los demás.
Excellent. Muchas gracias. Lovely. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to try to pull all this together because we've had a really quite an overfeed of really good points of view on the table itself. And I'm not going to give you my words. I'm going to give you back the words of our great speakers. So, every dish in front of you, as we know, is a story to be told. Tell it in your own language to add extra flavor. Technology is a means to an end. Gastronomy is tactile. Create platforms, connectivity of people, markets, supply chains, funding, transactions, sectors such as film, and travelers. It must be part of the policy framework, whether we're talking gastronomy or also technology, connecting to the SDGs to boost and to build and to create different types of jobs. We need to go outside in profile to raise the profile of what we're doing on the inside, whether it's UNESCO with the Creative City Network, the Basque Culinary Center, the UNWTO Gastronomy Forums, whatever it might be. Because importantly, gastronomy is a reflection of history, of culture, of values, of value, of hospitality, of unity and participation right through the country's people and its visitors. Importantly as well, it's a series of multiple connecting parts in a value chain, in the experience and in creating and delivering that experience. It's the business of people meeting people. And lastly, we have a new definition of the SDGs. It's about sharing, fostering, and empowering, using pride as a means of empowering, not just opportunity creative, and connecting people both through their lives and the technology that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, as we say a loving kapun krab, shishia, thank you, arigato, gracias, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please join me in a warm round of applause for our panels.